Hi, welcome to Was I in a Cult Part 37. This might be one of the hardest stories I'll have to talk about because it affected me in such a way that basically changed my life for the worse at the time. I am so grateful to be on the other side of this situation and be able to look back at it and actually talk about it now. I know I'm not the only one that has experienced traumatic events at church, so I hope that this story will help you relate and understand that you are not alone. So I had decided to go on a crusade to Colorado with a big group of people from our church. Now, we had two church vans going. One was the women's home and one was Diane's girls' home, which I did not want to go with Diane and the girls' home because Diane is the person that used to get me in trouble with Sandra. So I took the only option possible and went with Diane. I was grateful that I had Erica there kind of to be a buffer because I don't know, I just always had a weird vibe about Diane. I just felt like she was very competitive and just, I don't know, she just was a person that gossiped a lot, and I felt like I couldn't trust her because anything I told her, she was going to go tell Sandra and get me in trouble or something. Like, I just couldn't be real with her, if that makes sense. And as much as I liked Erica, Erica was Diane's pal in the world before they got saved. So they knew each other before, coming to church. So I knew that Erica's allegiance was going to be to Diane and that she was going to always be like, they had more history. They were always going to be closer and more tight knit. And so anything I ever told Erica, I knew would get back to Diane. And whatever she told Diane, I knew would get back to Sandra. And not that I was like hiding anything, but it was just like I felt like I had to be on my P's and Q's to make sure that they didn't get anything on me, if that makes sense. But obviously our church always just talked about forgiveness and what have you. So I just was like, I just need to forgive Diane and get over whatever happened in the past. This is your warning to beware of church people that act so interested in you and want you to tell your story so that they can use it against you. So when I got in the van, I kind of felt awkward. Like, I don't know, the girls weren't that nice to me. They didn't really include me in the conversations. Only Erica was the person that I could talk to, and I just felt like the other girls didn't really even have a desire to get to know who I was. I don't know if that had anything to do with Diane and how she felt about me, and I don't know if she said something to them prior to us going or what, but I felt like basically Diane told them not to really talk to me. So fast forward, we get to the crusade and they decide to have team leaders, and they choose me to be a team leader over something like 25 girls, including Diane and her girls' home. I knew that wasn't going to go over well. I'm pretty sure Diane thought that because she was taking her girls home that she would be in charge and that she would be the team leader. And I would have been okay with that. But with the pride that Diane had, there was no way she was going to be okay with me being a team leader and being over her specifically. Honestly, Diane had so much ego and pride that I was just like, oh no, this is not going to go well. I never really cared whether I led or was led by others, but some people, like Diane, just had a control trip anyways and wanted to always be in charge. She only had two girls in her home. It's not like she had a big women's home with like 15 girls that she was leading. She led two girls. So she felt super entitled to be the one in charge. I saw her whole countenance change, her whole attitude change, like the moment that she found out that I was going to be the leader. And I think she literally told her two girls in her home to ignore me on purpose because they would never be listening when I was talking. I would always see them laughing when I was talking, and I just felt like they were disrespecting me on purpose. So back to the actual crusade, it was very unorganized, to say the least. It was a Shih Tzu show. So when we got there, like, they didn't even know where they were going to have us sleep. So I remember, like, I think it was the first night we were there, we went to maybe 4 different houses before we found a place where we were actually going to sleep that night. I don't know why the arrangements weren't made already as to who was hosting who and where everyone was going to go. But like, we went to one house and they're like, oh no, this isn't where we're staying. And then we got in the van and then we went to another place and then they're like, no, this isn't where they're staying. I literally think it was like 4 different houses we went to before we ended up finding a place to stay that night. Like, all the people that were hosting people to stay at their houses were just not organized. Nobody really knew how many people they were supposed to be hosting, and then they would not have room for us, so we'd have to go somewhere else. That was the worst part of it. Just for reference, they would send out teams really early in the morning, and we would be out for 12 hours with 0 water or food. Me, as a leader, I was the designated person to actually get people to the events, to and from. I drove the church vans to locations and dropped people off and picked people up, and I also had to be out there as well. I remember the organization was really bad because nobody really knew when they were going to be picked up or when they were going to be dropped off. Sometimes I would be the driver, and so I would know what my schedule was, but others weren't following their schedule. So the times that I was out on the street, I was not being picked up at the right time. We didn't have cell phones or any type of communication. We just had to wait for a van to pick us up, and sometimes they would pick us up late. Then we would go back and the food would already be gone because we would get there too late and we wouldn't even be able to eat. As a leader, I ended up having to stay up late because I had to a lot of times do counseling with a lot of the girls, because some of these teens that were underage, they were like homesick, or they were crying, or they had issues that needed to be dealt with, and I had to stay up late a lot of times and get maybe like 1 or 2 hours of sleep before a 12-hour work day of just walking in the street and not eating. Now, obviously, you know that takes a toll on you. You can become a little bit delirious if you haven't ate and you've been in the hot sun without food or water for a couple of days. For me, I think what it did was, like, I got into like some kind of like this hyper state of mind where I was like zooming and nonstop. And I don't know, I can't even explain what I was going through, but I felt like energized. At the same time, I was also dealing with some emotions and feelings that I was having on the crusade. I was still dealing with the fact that I had feelings for Susan and trying to repress that. And in the meantime, there was another girl that I started having feelings for while we were in the van one day. I remember we had to be really close together, and this one girl I got close to, and then I started kind of having feelings for her, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So I had this like internal struggle and this outward struggle happening at the same time. It was chaos, literally. I was burning out fast, and it was not good. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna have to make another video continuing this story. But just think of the toll that it took on me to not eat, not have water, and not sleep for like a whole week, as well as dealing with the internal struggles I was having. I was literally being set up for disastrous consequences. However, I had zero idea of what betrayal would take place next in my life. Sorry, I'm out of time. Bye.